Okay, let's go.
Now with the bulk of the offseason over and the teams reporting to training camp, it's time to take a look at the NFC side of the league. First up, the NFC North.
The Green Bay Packers are one of the NFL's most storied franchises, although the 2022 campaign might be one that most Packers fans chose to forget about. The Packers started 3-1 with wins over sub-.500 teams. Then the season went off a cliff, where they lost 7 of their next 8, with the lone win being an overtime upset against the Dallas Cowboys. Despite the terrible middle section of the year, they bounced back and managed to have a 4-game win streak before losing to division rivals Detroit Lions on the last game of the season and missing out on the postseason. The Packers' fortune soon got worse as rumors of their longtime quarterback Aaron Rodgers leaving started emerging. After a long week in the darkness retreat, Aaron Rodgers decided he wanted to leave Green Bay for another franchise. Rodgers was traded to the New York Jets a few weeks later. The losses kept adding up for Green Bay. They lost receiver Allen Lazard, Robert Tonyan, Dean Lowry, Jaron Reed, and Adrian Amos. Moving on to the draft, their first selection again was not a wide receiver. However, it was for versatile defensive lineman Luke Van Ness from Iowa. The Packers drafted 2 tight ends in Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft. Overall, it's a new era in Green Bay with Rodgers leaving. Their offseason deserves a D grade. Packers look to struggle next season and possibly bottom of the NFC North. The Chicago Bears struggled this season to say the least. After a Week 1 victory over the San Francisco 49ers, the Bears struggled, only winning 2 of the remaining games. With the negative outlook some may see with the season, they did see an enormous improvement from second-year quarterback Justin Fields. The Ohio State product struggled with the lack of offensive line and supporting cast. There was hope with Fields' explosive runs he showed off in the back half of the season. Fields had the second most rushing yards in a single season by a QB, if he played all 17 games. Chicago finished the season with the worst record there for getting the number 1 overall selection. Before the draft, GM Ryan Poles made moves and traded the number 1 pick to the Carolina Panthers. This move provided the team with future draft capital for the next 2 years. Additional in the trader was young star wide receiver DJ Moore. Moore looks to be the instant number 1 target for Justin Fields. The rest of free agency saw the Bears bringing in tons of new talent. The best of the additions were the linebacking duo of Tremaine Edmonds and TJ Edwards. Additionally, they signed guard Nate Davis, running back Donta Foreman, and tight end Robert Tonyan. The Bears draft was also knocked out of the park. Chicago opted to take stud tackle Darnell Wright out of Tennessee. Wright was the only tackle to contain Will Anderson Jr. in college. The Bears added to the defense with the selection of Gervon Dexter, corner Tyreek Stevenson, and D-line Zach Pickens, and linebacker Noah Sewell. The sneakiest selection they made was the pick of Roschon Johnson from Texas. Johnson was a highly touted prospect who was overshadowed by Bijan Robinson. The overall offseason grade for the Bears as an A Chicago should look to be in the running for first place in the NFC North. The Minnesota Vikings had an overachieving 2022 campaign from the 8-win expected per Vegas odds. The Vikings finished with a 13-4 record, but if you ask most, they were fraudulent. 6 of their wins came within the last 45 seconds of the game. Some may say that is a team who has the clutch ability. Others would argue that's just luck. With the offensive weapon they have in Justin Jefferson, they are never out of a game. The Vikings finished with a top 10 offense while having a 28th ranked defensive unit. This became very apparent when they were upset in the first round of the playoffs to the New York Giants. The Vikings' free agency was rather lackluster. The additions of Marcus Davenport and corner Byron Murphy should add much-needed additions to one of the worst defenses in the league last season. Some of the notable losses were veteran wide receiver Adam Thielen and starting running back Dalvin Cook. On the other side of the ball, the Vikings let defensive tackle Dalvin Tomlinson, linebacker Eric Kendricks, and cornerback duo of Cameron Dantzler and Patrick Peterson. The re-signing of running back Alexander Madison, with their starter Dalvin Cook being released. The Vikings filled some vacant positions with their 2023 draft class. Their first-round selection was stud wide receiver Jordan Addison. Addison, a former Biletnikoff Award winner, looks to be the new young addition to the Vikings receiver room. Most of the other draft selections looks to improve the defense. Corner Mickey Blackman and Jay Ward add some youth to the secondary. Our overall grade for the offseason is C-. The losses of key players and the lack of quality additions outside of Addison don't look to greatly improve the overall roster. The current Detroit Lions are not the same team of old. The Detroit Lions finished with their first winning season since 2017, but unfortunately fell just short of the wildcard spot. Led by a stellar performance from veteran Jared Goff, the Lions finished the season with a top 5 scoring offense. Their defense, on the other hand, has some pieces, but needs more to not blow games for their great offense. The Lions traded away their star tight end TJ Hawkinson before the midseason trade deadline to division rival Minnesota Vikings. Usually, trading away a great offensive weapon has a negative effect for teams. However, the Lions would finish the season on a 7-2 run with a victory over the Green Bay Packers in the last regular season game to keep them from making the playoffs. This last season push gave Lions fans a massive confidence boost for their beloved franchise. Let's take a look at how Coach Dan Campbell and GM Brad Holmes attacked the offseason. Free agency showed the interest in what is happening in Detroit. The team signed running back David Montgomery. Montgomery had a lot of success in his time in Chicago. The team also brought back guard Graham Glasgow. Glasgow started his NFL career in Detroit back in 2016. The remainder of the key additions were on secondary with the signing of Cameron Sutton, Emmanuel Mosley, and safety Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. Chauncey was signed on a 1-year deal, but should be a great pairing next to Kirby Joseph. The Lions did lose some key players, however. Some of the main losses were fan favorite and team touchdown leader Jamal Williams. Williams broke the great Barry Sanders single-season touchdown record. Detroit also traded Jeff Okudah to Atlanta, who struggled to stay healthy. The draft had many analysts questioning their decision. The 2 first-round picks of Jahmyr Gibbs and linebacker Jack Campbell were solid picks, but many felt they reached for both. The Gibbs pick led to the trade of D'Andre Swift. In our opinion, their round 2 and 3 selections were great value at their draft. Tight end Sam Laporta looks to replace TJ Hawkinson, who was traded during the season. The safety Brian Branch was thought to be a first-round pick but fell to pick 45, and the last notable addition was Tennessee QB Hendon Hooker. Overall, we love what Dan Campbell is doing in Detroit and give them an A grade.